Hi, hello everyone. I'm really pleased to be with you here today and to talk to you about our project. So first, I'll try to share my slide. So fingers crossed. Okay, share. Okay, I'll try this. Okay, so I think you can see my slides. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay, but I don't see my notes. So um, I have my notes on paper. So thank you really for having me here today. My name is Suzanne Briand. I'm a non-Indigenous person descended from French settlers on both my mother's and father's sides. Excuse me, okay. I was born on the territory of the Wolastoqey Nation, which runs from the St. Lawrence River to the Bay of Fundy, the watershed of the St. John River, which long ago was called Wolastoq, meaning the beautiful and generous river. That's the picture you see on the screen. I live, work, and talk to you today from Quebec City, a territory that has been inhabited, crossed, and frequented by several First Nations. In a spirit of friendship and solidarity, I would like to pay tribute to the First Peoples of these lands, including the Wendat, Wabanaki, Innu, Atikamekw, and Wolastoqey. Here's what I propose. I'll start by briefly introducing the RVM, and then I'll talk in detail about our revision project, the methodology we've developed, the main changes that have been made so far, and the tools we've created to support library staff and users through these changes. And if we have time, I'll be happy to listen to your questions. So, répertoire de vedettes matières, what is it? Well, first of all, we call it RVM for short, and it's easier to say in English. It's a thesaurus used by French-speaking libraries across Canada and other countries to index their resources. RVM is bilingual, meaning that all French subject headings have English equivalents. These equivalents come from various thesauri, LCSH, MESH, CSH, AAT, FAST from OCLC, and for some headings, Homosaurus, or they may be in-house translation. It's an encyclopedic thesaurus ranging from medicine and philosophy to music and video games. Let's go back in time a little bit. We can remember that the Library of Congress began creating subject headings in 1897. 1946 marked the beginning of the translation and adaptation of LCSH by librarians at Université Laval. At first, the work was for the needs of Université Laval only. But other French-speaking libraries showed interest, and the repertoire began to be shared. That's how, in 1974, RVM was recognized as the national indexing standard in French in Canada. It's quite unusual for a national standard to be developed and updated in a university rather than a national library. I think it gives us a flexibility we might not have otherwise. The last paper edition was published in 1983, and since 2010, libraries have been able to access RVM via our website. RVM was last issued on CD-ROM in 2017. If you know what a CD-ROM is, don't say a word. It shows our age. We want to keep the RVM relevant. For example, last year, RVM has also been offered in linked data. The aim is to structure RVM metadata to make it machine readable within the framework of the semantic web. And that's all I know about that. We often talk about RVM, but there are several RVMs. RVM subject is the main one, of course, and the largest, with some 340,000 authority records. There are also 3 specialized thesauri: genre form, means of performance in music, and demographic groups. LC has the same. And the most recent, RVM FAST, which is the equivalent of OCLC FAST, but in French. It's a faceted thesaurus. All our thesauri are in Mark 21 format and now in linked data. We are a small and dedicated team, 6 people for about 1,300 requests per year. There's no specialization among librarians. We do all subjects. I have to tell you that RVM is available by subscription, but we have plans to open it up to everyone before long. The institutions that use RVM come from all walks of life: governmental, educational, academic, municipal, paramunicipal, and private. Most users are Canadian, and there are also users in Belgium, Spain, Lebanon, France, and the United States. So that completes the picture I wanted to paint of the RVM. Now let's go to the art of the matter, our project to revise the vocabulary describing Indigenous peoples in the RVM. It was the wish of the RVM Governance Committee to get the work underway. It's a project that's part of the RVM strategic planning, and above all, our customers asked us to do it with increasing insistence. In 2021, we were given a fairly flexible mandate, but there was one thing that was non-negotiable. We had to work in co-creation with the First Peoples. For us, this is essential. Our goal is, therefore, to change the problematic and outdated French words used in the RVM for other French words that Métis Nation and Inuit by working with partners from these peoples. You must know the political slogan, "Nothing about us without us." That applies to our context. The value that guide us in our project are just that, and engagement with communities to hear and integrate their perspective. So let's talk methodology. First, I want to tell you about our usual methodology. Our usual methodology is based on written documentation, dictionaries, encyclopedias, books, articles. And what's more, we base our subject headings on the principle of literary warrant. In other words, the creation of a subject heading is based on an existing work to be indexed. And as you know, written documentation has its biases, a Western point of view, a Eurocentric point of view. Albert Einstein is quoted as saying, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So if I wanted different results, unbiased results, I needed a different methodology. But what kind of project are we talking about? We often speak of decolonization projects, but is that really what we're doing? Scientific literature increasingly distinguishes between decolonization and decoloniality. In the book on decoloniality, concepts, analytics, praxis, Walter Mignolo says decolonization originally meant freeing a colony to allow it to become self-governing or independent, to build the former colonized own nation state. Is that really what we do? Later in the book, Mignolo explains decoloniality aims are to delink from the decolonial matrix of power in order to imagine and engage in becoming the colonial subject. But delinking is only the first step. What follows is living decoloniality, that is, assuming and engaging decolonial option. At RVM, we build on this theoretical position. Concretely, we recognize that there's a problem, and we are committed to working to correct it and to developing sustained, respectful relationships with Indigenous communities. What we want is to integrate the Indigenous perspective. So we've developed a different approach based on meetings with First Peoples partner. It's not very complicated. I prepare a table with the problematic subheadings, and in working meetings, we discuss, exchange, and above all, on our part, we listen. And what our partners tell us is what we integrate into the subject. With this methodology, our sources are our partner, not dictionaries. As it's a large corpus, we work along two areas of work: generic terminology and specific terminology to each mission. Depending on the set of headings we're working on, we'll be looking for different partners. For the generic terminology, because it affects civilization, we've decided to devise different colors. People know about Indigenous issues, who work with the various First Nations people, and who know what is used to name this or that concept and what is no longer used. They can explain to us the problems this or that word that poses and suggest the right expressions. In addition to our consultants, we have an indexer, a reference librarian, a librarian from Library and Archives Canada who knows CSH very well, and the library technician from RVM, and myself. For the terminology specific to each nation, we find people who are networks, who work in indigenous cultural organizations on language-related issues, who can see problems and give us the right ways of naming the different concepts. It's not a quick method. It's time find our partners. One organization that really inspired me was the University of Alberta, the Sharon Farn, who used the expression working at the speed of trust. That's what we want. It's all these people who make this work possible, the work and the results. They have my deepest miigwech, shmitin, nakurmik, waliwan, merci. I'm now going to show you the changes that have been made so far. That has been on 2023. And it continues each month depending on what we are ready to change. Within the autochthon things, we have conditions. We remove the bracketed qualifier that was present in 695 nation name subject headings. The word used for qualifier was an obsolete word, one we no longer wish to use. It was therefore removed. We've modified a number of subject headings in the classes of person type and what we call qualified subject headings. In the next few slides, I'll give you details on the basic changes that have been made. I must warn you that you will see some disrespectful words on the screen. I'm really sorry about that. Our plan is to eliminate these insulting words, but unfortunately, to explain the changes we've made, I still have to use them. I hope you'll forgive me for that. We haven't touched the subject headings autochthon. It's the heading with the larger scope, the indigenous peoples of the entire planet. With our partners, we agreed to use the expression peuple autochtone to designate the indigenous peoples of all three Americas. The subject heading for the indigenous peoples living in Canada is peuple autochtone -- Canada. You can see on the first line the use of the expression Première Nation. This is how the CSH First Nations is translated in the RVM. This subject heading can be subdivided geographically. You'll find an example on line 2. Next, on the table, you can see the use of the expression peuple autochtone and Première Nation in two headings of the type classes of person. I spoke to you a few minutes ago about the qualifier that had been removed. You have an example on the last slide. Please note that this does not mean that all nation names have been corrected in the RVM. Far from it. We are continuing our work in co-creation with our partners to correct the names of the nation. But at least by removing the insulting word, it's a little bit better. So it seems to. Here's a concrete example of the changes in our catalogs. You can see the bibliographic record for Thomas King's famous essay. It comes from WorldCat. On the right, you have the list of the subject headings. I've highlighted in yellow the changes made in French. What I want to show you in here is that the changes were made in the bibliographic records, not just in the public display. Another example of profound changes, cataloging in publication. BANQ, the National Library in Quebec, offers the cataloging in publication service to Quebec publishers. Now that the changes have been made in the RVM, the revised subject headings appear in the cataloging data and are printed in new books published in Quebec. Finally, I'd like to talk about the changes we've made last spring. These mainly affected the Métis Nation. We were also able to correct some subject headings that were close but ill-defined. Now the subject headings definitions are clearer and indexing should be much more precise. To support the indexing teams and, of course, the reference staff and the public, we have drawn a document explaining what has been done so far, giving examples and justifying certain choices and decisions. The document is accessible to all free of charge, no need of a RVM subscription. You can find it on our website under the tab Indexing Tools or on the project page. What's currently available is the 5th version, October 1st. You might ask yourself, is it available in English? I'm sorry, no, it's just in French. The design has been made by Canessa Michel, an Innu student at Université Laval. Page 2, on the right part of the screen, shows the origin of the curves and traditional indigenous patterns used by Canessa in her design. I'm quite proud of this document. Alexandre, one of our partners, told me at our first meeting to write a guide. He said, explain to people what you're doing. They are going to need help understanding. So right from the start, we planned and made the guide. And Michelle Odette, assistant of the vice rector and academic and student affairs at Université Laval, and she's also a senator in Ottawa, she told me over a year ago, Suzanne, don't hesitate to add color and beauty to what you do. It's a way of giving thanks, of being grateful. I must say the first version of the guide was quite boring, but now our guide is very pretty and it reminds me to be grateful to all the people who helped me with this project and in life. A little more on the guide. This is a page from the appendix that I wanted to show you. It's a table, several pages long, showing the new accepted headings, former headings, the LCSH and CSH equivalent, and some scope notes, examples, and clarification. The example I showed you earlier are taken from this appendix. The special release. The free special release. As a librarian at RVM and closely involved in this project, I'm proud to say that we've created and made available to everyone a special release, free of charge, which contains all the subject headings modified to date as part of our revision project. For us, sharing this release is a gesture of gratitude to our First Peoples partners. We'd like this co-creative work to shine as brightly as possible. It is our way to say thank you. The release is available in two formats. The UTF-8 file contains the complete records in Mark 21 format. Libraries and documentation centers using a system that supports the Mark 21 format should consider using this file format with the free Mark Edit software. The Excel spreadsheet has 4 columns, new accepted headings, former headings, LC equivalents, CSH equivalents. The file has several tabs. One tab lists all modified headings. The other tabs show groupings of subject headings, like generic vocabulary, qualified subject headings, classes of people, Métis Nation, etc. I've just told you what we've done so far, and there's still a lot to do. Here are the next steps. Complete the work begun with the Innu Nation. Complete the work begun with the Inuit. Revise the corpus of subject headings related to literature. Take steps to find partners for the other nations present on Quebec territory. Continue our participation in other initiatives in Canada, in the US, and internationally. And we'll be keeping a close eye on the revision work to be carried out by the LC in the United States. This will certainly have a major impact on our project. And also everything that's in our blind spot. You know, the things we need to change without knowing we need to change it. So we'll try to be attentive to that. That's about all I have for you today. I don't know if you have questions or comments too. I would be really happy to hear them. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Suzanne. It was very, very informative and very clear to get. Yes.
Susanna, you see, this is my university in autumn.
Yes, very beautiful. I remember we had our conference there, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, any questions or comments?
So I have a question, Suzanne, and this is sort of tangential, but in Quebec, there are many, many people from nations that were colonized by France. So I'm wondering if you get any requests from people from colonized Africa or colonized Caribbean for changes to words that relate to those colonial cultures.
Not yet. I haven't heard any demands on that type yet. Maybe because this project is still new. Maybe they haven't heard of it yet. I don't know, but it's really interesting. Maybe I can stop this to share. I'll see more people.
I see there's a comment from Sarah Papel, comment on the design explanation. Thank you for including the gratitude and joy in the work. Good reminder for all of us in our work.
Thank you. Yeah, I see it. It makes a difference. Just the colors and the design. It gives the guide. I don't know how to say oomph, and it's yeah. I'm really glad we had that design.
I have another question. You said that the work at LC, Library of Congress, would impact your work. And I'm wondering, would you, so for example, if LC came up with some subject headings that related to Alaskan Natives peoples, for example, would you accept those? Is that how you see LC affecting your work?
Maybe, or I don't know how they will change the LCSA, excuse me, Indians of North America. We have a lot of LC equivalents. Well, I really can't say. It will depend on by what they will change their subject headings. But I'm in contact with Sarah Kostelecki, so we'll keep a close eye on our work to see. Maybe it will be okay, and maybe the changes will just smoothly integrate in the RVM. Maybe yes, maybe no. We'll see.
Thank you. I have other questions, but if someone else has a question, please feel free to hop on. Well, while you're thinking, I'll ask another question. I know that Sharon Farnell spoke about working with local Indigenous circles of elders and having discussions where in the end, not everyone agreed, but they agreed to disagree. And so there was quite a lot of work that went on in coming to a conclusion on some processes. And I'm wondering if you've had that kind of experience where you've had several people from the same Indigenous group speaking to a question and having to work around to a conclusion rather than just having someone be able to speak directly for the group. And sort of how you've managed that question of, is this person actually able to speak for the group?
Yeah, that's a good question. So far, we didn't have to deal with that kind of discussion. But I know that in the west of Quebec province, in the Anishinaabe Nation, I heard that there's a lot of different ways to write Anishinaabe in and depending on the community, it might change. But I would need um, a valid form for all the nation. So I don't know yet how we will manage these discussions, but it might occur at least with the Anishinaabe Nation. But from now on, that was not really an issue for the the work we have done so far. But it might be.
Right. So to this point, have you ever been going into community to have those discussions, or has it always been a council that comes to you?
We do it by teams, virtually. Yeah, we find people. Usually, the partners work in cultural organization, so they are used to work with on different issues with different projects. So I set a meeting, and it's on virtual mode, so by Teams or by Zoom. So I can send them the table I was talking about, so they can see the amplitude of the problems. And after that, we talk, we discuss, and I take notes. And after that, I integrate their comments and changes in our authority records.
Right.
Is that answer your question?
That tells me how it's happening, which is what I was interested in.
Yeah, because you see, we don't want to take too much time. So usually the meetings are between an hour and a half, 2 hours. So to drive hundreds of kilometers for 2 hours would be not that
practical,
reasonable. Yeah. Well, I would like to go, but I'll have to do it on my own time.
right? Right. Does anyone else have questions for Susanna? If not, I'll turn it back to you, Susanna.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much, Susan. Okay, and we will go further ahead with our business.